Hey, this is Steve Good.
And Yuri Cataldo.
Cutting through the noise and misinformation in cryptocurrency to tell you what truly matters.
Yes, we are.
Oh, we're here. We're going to cut through the crap on the noise today because there's a lot of it going on out there.
There always is. But yes, particularly there's some new exciting, exciting-ish new noise.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what's exciting is the fact that we're finally seeing some movement in the U.S., specifically around the fact that Representative Warren Davidson from Ohio has called a meeting with Coinbase, Ripple, and a bunch of investment firms like State Street, Union Square Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz, and even the NASDAQ to try to put together a bill to put in front of the Senate to unlock the problem of the whole kind of no innovation in crypto in the U.S. because it's against the law problem with ICOs.
Right. Well, good. It's good that they're getting on top of that and finally doing something about it.
Somebody is from the House of Representatives, so that's a good start. I mean, I was talking to my wife about this, interestingly, and she'd said to me, well, the SEC, this and that, and it's all their fault that the U.S. isn't, really adopting crypto the same way as the rest of the world. And I said, that's not entirely correct, actually. And she said, so why don't you talk about it on the show then and tell people what's going on?
Right.
So, Yuri, would you like to tell us what's going on?
With the U.S. So,
well, they're in the U.S. It's not my problem anymore. I'm over here in the UK dealing with Brexit. I don't even know if we'll have we'll have to have our own cryptocurrency because, the pound will be worthless now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole separate other issue. No, it's good. It's good to see the U.S. actually doing something about it. But, we have decades of exchange law, and unfortunately they happen because there's a lot of scammers out there. And it is the attempt of governments to try to help the average investor not get scammed, which is also why, only recent regulation has happened with accredited investors and the government's trying to allow the average person to be involved in more and more type of investments, but you're right. They just don't want the average Joe six-pack, I guess, in a way, to be scammed by a lot of sophisticated or unsophisticated means. So
like people like me that got scammed, even though I tried desperately not to. And we will talk about this on another episode at some point when we get all of the details together. But right, I mean, that's exactly what I was saying to her as well, is that, what's really problematic in crypto is exactly what the SEC set out back in the 1920s and 30s to protect was, the old grandma that gets a guy knocking on the door saying, just give us like your life savings and we'll you'll make millions and you'll be able to retire very, nicely. And she's lost all her money. And the average person sitting at home that sees an asset and looks at it and says, oh, this is exciting. It turns out to be something that's not an asset. It's not regulated. It's not bonds. It's not equity. It's not currency. And crypto turns out to fall into that same category. And so because it falls outside the bounds of what was regulated, of course, Jay Clayton from the SEC is just trying to do his job, which is to say, hang on, before we let people start jumping in and creating what they claim are utilities, and they probably aren't, they probably are assets.
Right.
Let's just figure it out first. Unfortunately, it is massively stifling the U.S. when it comes to people jumping in and creating ICOs. And we've seen examples of Texas going after ICOs for trying. We've seen Dragon Chain, which was an incubator project, now under investigation from the SEC. And I mean, it's a hard situation because I sometimes make jokes and say, well, the U.S. is like China. I mean, let's face it, if you want to do crypto, leave the country. And I've said that to clients.
Right. You're not wrong, though. I mean, you and I both know, I have a few friends who are working on projects and they've still been stalled out because it's been a year and a half and they...
Right. Like our friends that were doing the AI project out in LA and they couldn't move the project forward because they were scared of the regulations that would come with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's still in the works, but it's still, who knows when it's actually going to launch.
Yeah.
Because of regulations.
Or lack of regulations.
Or lack thereof.
Or the usage of previous regulations, which were valid. And the question is whether those regulations are still valid or do we need to modify them in some way? Arguably, we probably need to find some middle ground. And I think the challenge is, what's the middle ground when crypto is being used as a utility and projects are trying to raise money without actually selling assets in the company like shares. But it does take us to an interesting point though around, this whole crowdfunding market and where it goes, because I've even seen projects that are trying to do fundraising or trying to just use blockchain and create utilities in their platform without doing fundraising. And of course, that's probably fine if you have an existing platform with existing users. But then when you bring new users on board, how do you give them the coin to use within the platform? Presumably, it's just part of the platform itself, and that's true utility without doing fundraising. But if somebody else wants to do fundraising, I mean, in the Kickstarter world or Indiegogo world, of which you know from history and experience, you weren't giving anything away except for maybe, for $500 you get T-shirt in a pair of, whatever.
Right.
And that would be like the most expensive T-shirt ever.
If you're even lucky to get the T-shirt, that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah, and I mean, I invested in several different, I was going to call them ICOs, several different crowdfunded projects where I got the promise of goods to come in the future and got nothing. I never got my 3D printer. I never got my my bamboo bicycles for my little kids. They were now too big for the bicycles. It's a shame. And they were cool projects, and I put money in, and I never got anything. Now, would you say, is that a fraud? Is it a scam? Or was it just unlucky? And nobody's bothered to regulate Indiegogo and Kickstarter for, promising nothing or promising something as an asset for cash. And yet now we're getting projects to issue coins for cash. So you have some sort of intrinsic value in that company. And again, it goes right back to the problem. Is it a security now? Is it a promise of using that coin on the platform in the future as a utility? Or is it something else? And should it be traded on exchanges or not? I didn't say that though.
Of course not.
No.
But you're right. We do. We've got a lot of these, new ways to kind of raise money in that sense. But who knows if what's going to happen with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, if that actually will be like an issue that's raised, because I don't know what the statistics are, but I would be curious to see of actual products that get sold and issued.
Well, I'll give a shout out to our friend Gary P, Vodka Man, and Gary and I had a conversation about the fact that he's put money into numerous projects in the past and never received anything from any of them, and just sees the whole thing as one big scam or waste of money that helps projects that potentially could start, but there's no checks and balances on that project, how they spend the money, when they receive the money. At least with a couple of smart contracts in place, you could give them tranches of money, like don't give it all at once, but give it in waves based on delivering certain services. But, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, they need our help to advise them on how to fix this. So
definitely. And I know, so being on the other side of that, I worked with a startup who did a Indiegogo campaign, and they still haven't. I stopped working for them a year and a half ago, but they still haven't delivered their sunglasses to the initial groups of investors. And for whatever reason, they were the problem oftentimes is just because you have a good idea and you're a smart engineer, it doesn't mean that you're very good at managing your time and money and resources. So that's what really happened with some of these.
And that's no different in the world of crowdfunding for the startup community of what we call ICOs today. But actually, I think part of what we want to cover today would also be around some of the new ways of doing crowdfunding and how it's shifting a bit. Because I think 2018 we've seen has been interesting. We've seen a decline in crowdfunding in the traditional sense of initial coin offering, offer the coin for Ether, which is the traditional way people have done it. And there's been a lot of transitioning that's been going on. And there's a whole load of new acronyms that I see floating around, and I know you've seen floating around. So that's why I thought it'd be good to say, what the fork are all these acronyms in crowdfunding? Because it's confusing.
There's so many new acronyms. When you brought this up, I was like, I have to spend so much time learning these. Yeah. Some of these are kind of, and there's some, I'll bring them at the end, are kind of made up, but they're still, it's good to just know about a few of the acronyms.
So what are the made up ones? Let's talk about those first, because those are probably the most exciting.
Some of the made up ones?
Or should we just make some up right now just because we could?
We should. Well, let me give you the made up ones that already exist, and then we can throw in some other ones.
All right, cool.
So IFO and IAO. Can you guess what those are? Those are made up, but what do you think those are? An IFO.
initial fund offering.
Yeah, initial fork offering. Close though.
Oh, okay. So an initial fork offering. So that would be like Anonymous Coin that took the Z Classic code base and said, hey, we're going to do another privacy coin and we'll just give you forked coins.
Yes.
That's my guess.
That's exactly what that is. Yes, that's what it is. And this is a term, I found this on Binance. So Binance has claimed this one. So that's where they came from.
But so now what's the difference between that kind of a initial fork offering and another one where you have a legitimate fork like Ethereum that had to split because of the DAO and created ETC and ETH, and it was a legitimate fork, not because of just the code base, but because of some problems that happened at the coin at the time. Or if a coin were to hard fork because of a code base change that was legitimately required to progress the coin, and some people decided to stay with the old coin and some went with the new one. So are those initial fork offerings or initial disagreement offerings, IEOs?
IDOs, they're definitely
we've got IDOs and IFO. So Binance picked this one up. We got IDOs. I do not agree, so I'm going with a different direction. I'm going with the old coin. You can go with the new one.
Exactly. Well, it looks like so they don't like the fork offerings because from an exchange point of view, they describe it as an exchange being forced to support this project, and they see a lot of forks as completely useless. So from their point of view, they hate it because they don't want to support them. They only want to support, I guess, a limited number of coins.
Fair enough. I mean, they're probably getting tons of people coming to them saying, "I've got Bitcoin Platinum, Bitcoin Platinum,
right.
Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Super, Bitcoin Latino."
Right, which is a real thing.
Which is unfortunately a real thing, but doesn't sound very real. But anyway, so
it doesn't.
No.
Right.
But yeah, so they don't want to cover all these different forks. They want projects to effectively do what? Legitimate business, start from scratch, build it up. And if they want to take the code base from a privacy project like Pivx or Dash and spawn a new project using the GitHub repository to get started to make life easier, that's one thing. But actually forking the full coin and giving people the coins from the existing coin, they're not a fan of.
Right.
Okay, so that's one initial fork offering. And from that, we already had a fork called the IDEO, which is the initial disagreement offering, or what did I say? Initial.
Yeah, I think it was initial disagreement offering.
Okay, something like that.
We'll go with it.
Yeah,
something like that. Okay, their other made-up one, an IAO, initial airdrop offering.
So how's go on?
It's the same as an airdrop. They just describe it differently.
So
just in case you're wondering, it's exactly the same as an airdrop. They're just calling it an airdrop offering that will be able to be supported on an exchange.
So what if a project was to initially offer coins in an airdrop before they actually started doing the fundraising because they wanted the coins to show up in people's wallets to draw their attention to the fact they've received a coin they've never heard of, and that would be like a marketing ploy just to get them to come to the project and check it out. But they weren't doing airdrops actively, but they did it passively. I'm coming up with a marketing idea for someone out there. Because too many of the airdrops are sign up to the project and come get your free coins. But what if they did it the other way around and said, let's do an airdrop to a bunch of random people and then announce that you've done an airdrop. And if you want to participate in the project and find out more, come check it out. You've already got some coins in your wallet. You may as well find out what you can do with them. But you can't earn them. They were just given out randomly in advance.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds kind of like, I mean, if they did that on an exchange, then sounds like a little bit about what Binance is describing this.
Right.
Because what they don't like is to have users install another new wallet to receive an airdrop. So yeah, because part of this says at the very end, if you're going to do one, be sure to work with the big exchanges first.
Oh, that's interesting. So their whole premise around initial airdrop, I was going to call it initial artificial offerings. And I just did another fork. I'm sorry. And so I think what you're saying is that their whole point is that the airdrops they're describing would be ones that are done within the exchange, as to the ones where if I look in my Mu, I would see some coins just show up in my Ether wallet or my just, normal Ether wallet address. And they're ascribing to a different model, which is airdrops done within the exchange as opposed to ones done to your private wallet where you have the private wallet and the private keys. So that's interesting because now we're talking about a fork in the airdrop model.
Yes, we are.
So would that be called an IFAO? So an initial fork airdrop offering?
Yes, it would.
I apologize, listeners. I know I'm in a bit of a punchy, silly mood. I've been suffering from allergies this week, and I've had so much allergy medicine. I'm just like, my head is spinning.
All right, so let's talk about a legit one that other people use besides us, which is an STO, or security token offering.
Yeah, so this is where I think the world is getting interesting. So I think you probably saw that September, first week, second week of September, it was announced that Binance and the Maltese Stock Exchange are now, they have a memorandum of understanding, or another three-letter acronym, an MOU, which says that they intend to launch a collaboration to launch another exchange, which will be specifically for crypto-based assets that are security tokens. So in essence, an STO is offering a coin, but the coin is actually backed by a real asset as opposed to trying to pretend it's not. So if you're selling coins and the backing of the asset is, dare I say, USD, as in USD Tether, which we haven't proven is true, but could be, or whether we said it was the Gemini US dollar, which we know will be true, it's backed by dollar, or backed by gold, backed by real estate, or backed by companies' real assets, bonds, whatever else it is, as long as there's some equity or some asset that you're buying into, and the coin represents something that has true value, then it's a security, much the same way as you'd be buying equity in a company where the equity is a representation of the company's true value. So there's a growing trend of those. I see a lot more people talking about doing STOs. Of course, the biggest problem for STOs is, so where are you going to list your coin exactly? And I always get the same blank response. Yeah, I haven't thought about that yet. And you say, okay, but you do realize, of course, that the investors who are investing in your project at some point are going to want to know where the coin's going to go. And nobody tends to want to wait 18 months to find out which exchange will be first to launch security-based tokens. Although Binance is not the only one I've spoken to in the exchange world. There is another exchange I've spoken to about it, which I'm hoping will be on our channel soon. And then they can talk about it themselves freely. I won't say it for them. But it's certainly a challenge if you have a project and you're even remotely close to having an asset. Issuing dividends is another form of security, because you're securitizing the coin, much the way you would give dividends on equity or shares. If you're giving people rewards, those rewards can also be seen as assets too sometimes. So it's a very dicey line. We may have to do a very specific episode and get a lawyer on and talk about STOs and what securities are and what the Howey test is, because actually it's a whole topic in itself.
Oh, I think we definitely should go deeper into that particular acronym, just to get the ins and outs of that. There's one that's similar, which I'm trying to see more than one person. Have you heard of also a TAO, or tokenized asset offering, which seems to be the exact same thing, but someone else just used TAO?
I saw the term coined last year, probably around December 2017 or so. I saw an article on CoinDesk about that. And when I read the articles or content I've read on TAOs, it almost sounded like they were trying to be clever and calling it a DAO. Instead, they called it a TAO. Yes. But actually, when you read it, I think it's really an STO.
Yes, based off of...
And now we're in acronym hell, because we're talking as if we're working at Microsoft. And I recall a day once when I went to Microsoft to have a client meeting, and they sat there for 5 minutes in acronyms, at which point I said to them, excuse me, all of you people from MSFT, can you tell me what the hell you're talking about? And they all turned and looked at me, because MSFT is Microsoft in ticker symbol language. And they all turned and looked at me and they said, oh, did you not understand anything we were saying? I said, pretty much not from the beginning, no. Because Microsoft as a company has so many acronyms that unless you know their language being there all the time, and here we are talking STO, ICO, IFO, IAO, I invented the IDO, and we haven't even talked yet about the IEO. Right. Which I really like. This is a really cool one. It's the initial exchange offering. So do you know what that is?
I do. So I do know what an initial exchange offering is, and I read the article that Binance wrote about it. So Binance does not like IEOs.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I do
So
like them, so let's have an argument about this now, shall we?
Binance. All right. So this is from Binance's side.
Okay.
They argue that they don't like them because a high percentage of the coins are held by a small number of people. So they don't like it that if it gets listed on the exchange, the price goes up, then that small number of people benefit more than everybody else. Or if the price drops, oftentimes those people get to sell heavily, taking whatever their profit or loss is, and then new investors are left holding the bag.
Okay.
So that was that one. And they're also worried about, because there's a high number of people who control the coins, that's easy to manipulate the price. So that's the Binance reason of why they don't like IEO.
Okay, so let's first describe what an IEO is, and then let's break down the problem. And we could probably go into more details on this. So the quick overview of an IEO is this. I'm an ICO. I don't want to have to create my own KYC system. I don't want to have to create my own dashboard. I don't want to have to spend all my time distributing coins against their KYC and verification processes. So there are some exchanges that are pretty much offering a mechanism. Oh, and by the way, when you're doing a coin, an ICO, it's very hard to do it in multi-currency, because then you have to have bank accounts set up for everything. You have to have all the approvals. If you're doing it in Bitcoin and Ether, and the fluctuations in the coins is going all over the place, it scares a lot of people off. So what's easier to do is you have somebody who provides you a facility. Let's not call it an exchange for the moment, but you have a facility that effectively says, you give us the coins you want to sell, and we will put them available to the users within our own existing community in fiat currency, USD, Euro, Pound, whatever is on our system already, or USD Tether, or True USD, or Gemini USD, or whatever else. And we'll sell it in Ether and Bitcoin and any other coin you want. You fix the prices on those as you would do any other ICO. But more importantly, all of your users who want to participate will have to sign up to our platform, go through KYC in order to gain access to participate. And to me, the benefit seems to be quite heavily weighted toward the exchange at the beginning, because they just get tons more users on their platform for doing this. Contrary to your or Binance's point of view about a small number of people participating, actually what I see right now in the most of 2018 is an evaporating crowd-based funding environment, replaced by a small number of investors buying tons of coins. So that, of course, is already happening, whether or not the coins are being put onto exchanges. So anyway, we can talk about this on a separate episode. I think there's more to cover. The point of the IEO is it enables an ICO to put their coins for sale in a single environment with the opportunity to get listed on that exchange at completion, so long as they met certain criteria and conditions, and they don't have to go through a whole application process all over again. They just do it once. Now the exchanges will have a fee for doing this. They'll have a fee for listing, all the rest of the stuff. But now now the exchanges can offer a range of services. They can offer the KYC and the dashboards that everyone participates and uses as investors. They can provide a range of currencies that are not normally available to people. They can provide distribution of the coins to the individuals after the ICO or IEO completes. They can do the exchange listing for you, and they can provide market making services. So to me, there's a lot of benefits as offerings to ICOs, and I would have thought that by being on an exchange, you'd actually have more disbursement or distribution of investors, because you're now offering this to a whole range of the community, both within the exchange as well as all the individuals who are coming in from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure why Binance does not like them originally, but yes, like it makes more sense to do it that way.
IEOs, in my opinion, in the future, if they were to take hold and continue going ahead, could really be the superset for ICO and STO, because you could list your coins in, I guess it's kind of like a one-stop shop. It doesn't even have to be an exchange, but if you had a one-stop shop where you could basically do your fundraising, whether it's a utility token or a security token, and that whole one-stop shop offered everything to manage the process from KYC, dashboards, distribution of tokens, enabling you to tap into communities to do fundraising. That's not a bad thing, but whether they're security or utility tokens is another matter. It's just so to me, ICO is a process, and IEO is a process, and STO is more of a, well, it's a securitization of the token from the beginning. So,
right.
Yeah. it's a lot of acronyms. I think I've kind of twisted my tongue a little too much here already today.
There are, but you've done a very good job of those, though.
Twisting my tongue.
Yes.
Good. I didn't make fun of you today either.
The day is not over yet.
The day is not over yet. This is true. And we're going to ask you about your background screen now and why it's not green or why it's not the coin chat. May as well. To finish the episode, Yuri has to tell everybody on the channel why it is that he still doesn't have a background screen. Because
when I first bought the green screen on Amazon, I'd failed to notice that it didn't come with the supports. So I own essentially a very large green curtain with nothing to hang it on.
So I would love nothing more than to get all of our subscribers who have opportunities to suggest things to Yuri to come onto Telegram or onto our YouTube channel or wherever you'd like to go. Send us an email at thecoinchatpodcast@gmail.com and let Yuri know what he should do with his green screen. It's just a drape.
It is.
My vote is he goes for the green the green toga, and we'll have to send him somewhere for Halloween and have something projecting on this green screen. So it's like the augmented reality toga for Halloween this year. That's my vote.
That's a really good idea, actually.
Thank you very much.
I can figure out a way to constantly do that while I'm moving around. My outfit will change constantly.
Correct. You could be like, Dracula 1 minute and Frankenstein the next.
So that's why I thought a white background was like nice and neutral behind.
It is very neutral.
It is, rather than like random bits of junk that are in this room.
It beats that crazy gray screen where we were making fun of you being like
right
from The Ring or Thing from the Addams Family or whatever that was, right?
It is. Cool. See, I offer an adventure. What weird stuff is going to be behind Yuri today? That's part of my
nothing. That's the problem.
Contribution.
Well, Yuri, always great. Had good fun. I'm afraid that our users probably have better things to. Our listeners, I didn't say users. Our listeners probably and subscribers probably have better things to do than hear about why your green screen is still not green.
Probably yes.
Hopefully, we've given everybody a good overview of STOs, IFOs, IEOs, ICOs, my forked IDO, and IAOs. If you don't remember what they are, we'll put them in the description below for you on YouTube. Have a great week.